10 stories far ahead of their time. Welcome to Next Chapter Audio, where we take you beyond the stories you know. Some tales aren't just ahead of their time. They leap forward by decades or even centuries, imagining worlds that are still beyond our reach. Today, we're exploring 10 extraordinary stories that push the boundaries of their era. Narratives so visionary that they've shaped, predicted, and challenged the way we see the world. These stories go beyond mere predictions. They open doors to futures that their authors could only dream about. Number 10, The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster. E.M. Forster's short story, The Machine Stops, is a small paradox. It's a tale that is both visionary and reactionary. Written in 1909, it describes a world where people live in isolated underground rooms, communicating only through microphones and moving images. They rarely leave their chambers, becoming pale, weakened shadows of humanity, completely dependent on a mechanical system called simply the machine. In this world, the machine fulfills every need, yet it ultimately strips away the essence of human connection and vitality. The story follows Kuno, a rebel who yearns to experience life beyond the constraints of the machine. His desire to escape echoes a central warning in Forster's story, that the more we depend on technology to mediate our lives, the further we drift from what it means to truly live. Forster wrote this as a reaction to H.G. Wells's A Modern Utopia. Yet while Wells's vision was grounded in optimism, Forster's story presents a cautionary tale of humanity's detachment from nature and real-world interactions. What's truly remarkable is how Forster's tale prefigures issues we face today, like parasocial relationships and our reliance on platforms like Zoom to communicate. And it doesn't stop there. Forster imagined synchronized sound with moving images long before radio had even reached the average consumer. Though more than a century old, The Machine Stops continues to resonate, challenging us to reflect on the consequences of technological dependence. Number 9, The Shapes by J.H. Rosny-Aîné. When it comes to early science fiction, H.G. Wells often comes to mind for his tales of alien invasions, like War of the Worlds, but a lesser-known story actually beat Wells to the punch by about 10 years. Written in 1888 by French author J.H. Rosny-Aîné, Les Épées, or The Shapes, as it's known in English, was one of the earliest stories to pit humankind against alien forces. Set in 5000 BC, this visionary tale follows a Mesopotamian tribe that stumbles upon a terrifying race of alien beings, strange blue shapes that resemble cones, cylinders, and discs, with the power to set humans on fire from a distance. The story takes us into a world where the tribe's first encounters with these mysterious entities result in disaster. When the tribesmen try to appease these shapes with a sacrificial horse, the aliens perceive the gesture as a threat and retaliate. In their desperation, the tribesmen turn to a misfit named Bakunin, a man with a scientific mind who seeks to understand these creatures rather than blindly fear them. Through the scientific method, Bakunin eventually discovers a vulnerability in the shapes, using intelligence over brute force to counter them. What's unique about The Shapes is its ambiguity. The story never confirms whether these aliens came from another planet or if they're a bizarre offshoot of Earth's own evolution. Further adding to its complexity are the death cults that arise within the tribe, with some members believing the Shapes' attacks are divine retribution. And in a truly surprising twist for a story written in the 19th century, Bakunin observes these strange beings reproducing by releasing clouds of spores, a scene more reminiscent of 1970s psychedelic sci-fi than of a historical fiction tale from the late 1800s. The Shapes challenges readers with a vision that's both ancient and futuristic, exploring humanity's instinct to understand and ultimately conquer the unknown. It's a testament to the power of early science fiction and a story that pushed boundaries long before the genre took root. This version emphasizes the story's unique and futuristic elements while drawing the listener into its mysterious world, creating an engaging narrative for those fascinated by tales that were ahead of their time. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next one. Number 8, Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook. The original nursery rhymes. Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook might sound innocent enough, but this 1744 book is anything but. As the earliest known collection of English nursery rhymes, it includes timeless classics that have survived generations: Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, Baa Black Sheep, and Hickory Dickory Dock. Yet, while today these rhymes are considered kid-friendly staples, Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook reveals a much darker side of children's entertainment in the 18th century. For one, many of the rhymes in this book would probably raise a few eyebrows in today's classrooms. One rhyme is literally called Piss a Bed. And there's My Mill, a rhyme about a mill that grinds rats and mice. Not exactly what you'd expect from a children's songbook. And then there's the rhyme scheme itself, with Piss a Bed claiming that butt rhymes with up. It seems Tommy Thumb was less concerned with precision and more focused on shock value. This little book predates the Brothers Grimm by almost a century, yet it shows that edginess in children's literature is far from a modern invention. Long before stories like Hansel and Gretel were written down, kids in 18th century England were reciting rhymes with surprisingly dark undertones. Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook stands as a reminder that the past wasn't always as innocent as it seems, and sometimes even nursery rhymes come with a twist. Number 7, The Notting Hill Mystery by Charles Warren Adams. For mystery fans, Wilkie Collins's The Moonstone often holds the title of the first detective novel, published in 1868. But as is often the case, history had a twist in store. 6 years earlier, Charles Warren Adams, writing under the pseudonym Charles Felix, released The Notting Hill Mystery, a story that marked the true debut of the detective mystery genre. Published as a magazine serial in 1862 and later as a book in 1865, this groundbreaking story was presented as a series of letters detailing a murder investigation. Adams was venturing into uncharted territory, and without a formula to follow, he made some unconventional choices. For instance, the setup for the murder is more than a little peculiar. The victim drank poison while sleepwalking. And as it turned out, her husband had suspiciously taken out 3 insurance policies on her life. The plot has its quirks, and as one researcher remarked on NPR, it's difficult not to crack a smile at some of the story's contrived twists. The story follows an insurance investigator, not a private detective, which distances the reader from the emotional core of the case. And in a move that feels truly unorthodox today, the investigator doesn't actually bring the killer to justice. This lack of resolution may be one reason why The Notting Hill Mystery didn't secure a lasting place in literary history. But despite its quirks, the novel stirred considerable interest in its time and paved the way for future mysteries with more refined, crowd-pleasing elements. The Notting Hill Mystery may not have the flair of a modern thriller, but it opened the door for an entire genre. Its influence lingers in every detective story that came after, reminding us that even the pioneers of the mystery novel once had to find their way in the dark. Number 6, Romance in Marseille by Claude McKay. Claude McKay is celebrated as one of the central figures of the Harlem Renaissance, and in 1928, he became the first Black American author to make the bestseller list. Yet, even McKay had works that never saw the light of day during his lifetime. Romance in Marseille, a novel he completed in 1933, remained unpublished for decades, too provocative and daring for its time. When it was finally released in 2020, Romance in Marseille was strikingly modern. The story follows a Moroccan stowaway who suffers frostbite and loses his feet while imprisoned on his way to New York. After winning a lawsuit for his injuries, he returns to the vibrant port city of Marseille, where he mingles with a cast of characters rarely seen in fiction from the early 20th century: prostitutes, socialists, and working-class queer figures. It's a narrative that seems almost tailor-made for today's audience, exploring themes of race, disability, and identity in a manner that resonates profoundly with modern readers. But as with any story, romance in Marseille also carries the cultural baggage of its time. As Molly Young noted in Vulture magazine, the novel includes a stereotypical portrayal of a Jewish lawyer, a reminder that even the most forward-thinking works aren't free from the prejudices of their era. McKay's novel is a testament to his foresight and willingness to explore characters and themes that many wouldn't dare touch, even today. Its delayed publication only underscores its relevance, proving that some stories truly are far ahead of their time. Number 5. Journey to the West by Cheng'en. Imagine if the Odyssey was set in ancient China and Odysseus was a monk, accompanied by a ragtag crew of mischievous monsters on a holy mission. Welcome to Journey to the West, a Ming Dynasty-era novel published in 1592 and attributed to Cheng'en. This classic tells the story of a real-life Buddhist monk, Xuanzang, renamed Sripitaka in the novel, who travels to India with a magical entourage to retrieve sacred texts. But unlike most epics of its time, Journey to the West isn't just an adventure. It's a comedy, loaded with slapstick humor and playful deconstructions of fantasy tropes. One of the novel's standout characters is the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. Born from a stone and accidentally acquiring laser eye powers, Sun Wukong is a breakout character who's practically a cultural icon. In his quest for power, he becomes immortal 6 times over and even threatens to overthrow heaven. His antics include some scenes that are downright irreverent, like a memorable moment where he urinates in the Buddha's hand, a bold move for a character in a 16th century Chinese text. What's fascinating about Journey to the West is how many modern storytelling elements it anticipated. It's packed with mythological crossovers and has a wild cast of gods, demons, and legendary creatures that pave the way for contemporary crossover tales like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and even the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And its influence doesn't stop there. The iconic anime Dragon Ball Z takes direct inspiration from Sun Wukong, echoing his unending powers and defiant attitude in characters like Goku. Though considered too vulgar for polite society in its time, Journey to the West has endured as one of the most beloved works of Chinese literature. Its blend of adventure, humor, and satire has left an indelible mark on fantasy storytelling, proving that sometimes the most forward-thinking tales are also the most fun. Number 4. The Great Automatic Grammizator by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl may be best known for whimsical children's stories, but his 1953 tale, The Great Automatic Grammizator, holds a surprisingly prophetic place in today's world. This story follows John Knipe, an inventor and frustrated writer who creates a machine capable of writing stories on its own. The device, aptly named the Grammizator, can arrange words according to grammatical rules, eventually even constructing plots. As the machine churns out passable stories, mediocre writers are forced to either submit their writing styles for absorption into the machine or face being driven out of business. Though he couldn't have known it at the time, Dahl was describing an eerie precursor to today's conversations about artificial intelligence and its impact on creative work. Of course, Dahl wasn't the first to explore this idea. Just a few years earlier, George Orwell's 1984 featured the Ingsoc government using a versificator to produce music and smut without human input. But where Orwell focused on government control, Dahl's story examines the publishing industry itself, specifically how such a machine could disrupt the livelihoods of writers and reshape the world of literature. 70 years later, the Great Automatic Grammizator resonates deeply, posing questions about the role of human creativity in an increasingly automated world. Dahl's speculative fiction highlights a conflict that feels all too real today. Can we preserve authentic artistry in the face of machines that imitate human expression? Roald Dahl's vision may have seemed fanciful in 1953, but his exploration of technology's effect on creativity feels eerily relevant, reminding us that even the wildest ideas can one day come to pass. Number 3. The Three Apples from 1001 Arabian Nights. When it comes to detective fiction, many credit Edgar Allan Poe's murders in the Rue Morgue as the first, published in 1841. But centuries before, Poe wrote about C. Auguste Dupin's Sleuthing. An earlier detective story appeared in an unexpected place, 1001 Arabian Nights. Among its tales is The Three Apples, a murder mystery featuring the vizier Jafar, who must solve the case of a woman's dismembered body found in a chest at the bottom of a river. Jafar's task isn't simply to satisfy his curiosity. He's given a 3-day deadline to find the murderer or face execution himself. The stakes are high, but Jafar's investigation is unconventional, to say the least. Instead of piecing together clues with methodical precision, he mostly waits for confessions or lucks into key evidence that literally walks into his home. And while the story lacks a proactive detective by today's standards, it nonetheless laid the groundwork for the genre that would follow. With millennia separating modern readers from the world of The Three Apples, it's no surprise that Jafar's approach might seem a little passive. Still, it's remarkable that this ancient story contains so many elements we now associate with classic detective tales. A gruesome murder, a high-stakes investigation, and a determined, if somewhat reluctant, investigator. The Three Apples may not feature a Sherlock Holmes or a Hercule Poirot, but it shows that the mystery genre was alive and well centuries ago, far beyond the reach of Western literature. More than just a story from antiquity, The Three Apples offers a glimpse into the early roots of detective fiction, proving that the intrigue of solving a mystery has captivated human imagination for centuries. Number 2. The Green Knight. Claude McKay may have taken a risk by writing Romance in Marseille, but his personal safety was never in jeopardy. For the anonymous poet who penned The Green Knight in the late 14th century, however, things were different. The story of Sir Gawain's eerie encounter with the Green Knight was written around AD 1390, at a time when European states considered homosexuality punishable by death. And yet, this Arthurian poem hints at themes that must have seemed dangerously provocative to medieval audiences. The Green Knight tells the tale of Sir Gawain, who accepts a strange challenge to behead the mystical Green Knight. In return, Gawain agrees to let the Green Knight deliver a blow to him 1 year later. On his way to fulfill this dark promise, Gawain stops at the castle of Lord Bertilac, where they strike a curious bargain. Lord Bertilac agrees to share the spoils of his hunts with Gawain, while Gawain, in return, must pass on anything he receives at the castle. This leads to an exchange where Gawain receives kisses from Lady Bertilac, and staying true to his word, returns them to her husband. Despite a modern resurgence in LGBTQ+ acceptance, adaptations of The Green Knight, including the 2021 film, sometimes shy away from the poem's undertones. As Princess Weeks pointed out in a review for the Mary Sue, the film alters the original power dynamic, casting Lord Bertilac as an older, dominant figure who seems to force the kiss on a younger Gawain, creating a moment of discomfort for the audience. In contrast, the original poem depicts a more equal exchange, suggesting that medieval audiences might have been more open to ambiguities than we give them credit for. The tale of the Green Knight stands as a reminder that literature has always been a place for exploring complex, even controversial themes. It challenges our perceptions of history, showing that cultural norms are rarely black and white. Sometimes they're as ambiguous as the green glow of an enchanted night. Number 1. True History by Lucian of Samosata. Our final story takes us back to 2nd century Greece, to a work widely considered the first piece of science fiction ever written, True History by Lucian of Samosata. Lucian, a Syrian satirist who spent much of his career in Athens, was known for his biting humor and social critique. His True History is a parody of the travelogues popular in his day, a surreal journey filled with imagination and absurdity. In fact, Lucian begins the story by telling his readers, "I confidently pronounce for a truth, I lie," setting the tone for an epic adventure where reality is left far behind. The story follows Lucian and his 50-man crew on a voyage that defies all logic. After their ship is swept into space by a powerful whirlwind, they land on the moon, only to find themselves caught in an interplanetary war. Here, the vulture-riding moon people prepare for battle against the sun people, who ride ants, and both sides are fighting for control of Venus. In a scene that defies modern expectations, the armies prepare for combat on a giant web spun between the moon and Venus by colossal spiders. It's a bizarre vision, one that only someone with Lucian's audacious imagination could have crafted. Centuries before spaceships and star-faring empires entered our collective consciousness, Lucian gave his readers a fantastical vision of space exploration and interplanetary warfare. True history isn't just a parody, it's a testament to the limitless power of imagination, challenging our modern perceptions of what science fiction can be. Lucian's story, with its incredible originality, shows us that no era has a monopoly on creativity. These stories show us that imagination has no limits, and sometimes a single idea can transcend generations, inspiring us in ways we never expect. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the past and into futures that might still lie ahead. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to subscribe to Next Chapter Audio for more dives into the world's most forward-thinking tales. Until next time, keep imagining, keep reading, and keep discovering the stories that shape our world.